weeks to initiate flowering, high temperatures, water deficit conditions, and photoperiod effect flowering, flower development, and pyrethrin yields. In the second question, Mr. Speaker, in response to the second question regarding the revitalization of pyrethrum sector in the Lake region and economic bloc and in the country generally, let me inform the Honorable House that the government is pursuing several policy reforms and initiatives to revitalize the pyrethrum sector, both in the Lake region bloc as well as the other counties, particularly Kisii, Nyamira counties, where pyrethrum does well, and across the country generally. The reforms are geared towards boosting production, improving farmers' livelihoods, and addressing global market challenges. Specifically, on policy reforms, one is the distribution of high quality and clean planting materials. We have experienced in the past problems as far as seeds are concerned, and the government is focused on providing farmers with high quality, clean pyrethrum planting materials. Several stakeholders have distributed planting materials to pyrethrum farmers, and the planting materials, including the seedlings, distributed to West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nyandarua, and Nakuru, which each received about 250,000 seedlings respectively, and Kericho, some 50,000 seedlings. Mr. Speaker, it is also pertinent to us and clear that the government is encouraging the participation of private sector in the growing and processing of pyrethrum to make the subsector more competitive. And not just more competitive, is to create a market for the pyrethrum growing farmers. And already within the country, some of the partners are botanical extract. We have got a company called Kentagra, Biotechnology, and Africhem Technologies. These are investors in production and value addition of pyrethrum products. We have financial challenges within the sector. The government allocated some 105 million, which everybody will appreciate that that money is not enough for the pyrethrum processing company of Kenya. We have got a huge debt portfolio, which has fallen over many years, and therefore we can only use this money for the purchasing of seeds and propagation of planting of seedlings and provision of extension services to farmers. However, we will need your support in terms of getting adequate provisions to revive the industry. But I'm going also to make proposals as I explain, as I answer the question. The issue of addressing the historical issue of delayed payments to farmers is a critical policy reform. Agriculture and Food Authority regulates both private and government players to ensure prompt payments at competitive rates per kilo and based on pyrethrin content as an incentive to return to pyrethrum farming. Mr. Speaker, the reason why a lot of people stopped farming pyrethrum is because A, there was no market, and B, they were not being paid on time. The ministry, through the Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya Limited, pays the pyrethrum growers their produce on the basis of pyrethrin content. In an ideal situation, the practice is to advance growers an amount of money per every kilogram of dry flowers delivered to the factory, and the balance to be paid after the content analysis. But to be honest, this is not happening due to cash flow constraints that the company has. The advance is to cushion growers and enable them to manage the agronomic practices to enhance production per unit area. And just, Mr. Speaker, with the document that we have given a pricing, the pyrethrum producer price schedule, which is attached to my answer there. I don't know whether you want me to go through the whole...
No, it's not necessary.
The whole thing. But let me just highlight one thing, Mr. Speaker, to say that the highest rates that we have paid at the moment is actually in West Pokot at 525 shillings per kilo. And the reason why West Pokot is earning very high rates is because the pyrethrin content within the pyrethrum grown in West Pokot is actually the highest in the country at the moment. Mr. Speaker, we are also looking at liberalizing the pyrethrum sector by encouraging the private investors to join the value chain. You know, the aim here is at eliminating the monopoly previously held by the defunct Pyrethrum Board of Kenya and foster competition, which is expected to lead to better prices for farmers and stimulate growth. We also aim at reducing competition, unnecessary competition from imported pyrethrums. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that following demands from both this House and the National Assembly, we banned some 77 pesticide products and restricted over 200 others imported into the country. And this creates an opportunity for the pyrethrum industry to start replacing the pesticides that we have banned from outside the country with suitable organic pesticides, because pesticides are still necessary. But we can produce them organically using pyrethrum. So the pyrethrum-based pesticides will provide a good market for our pyrethrum farmers. Mr. Speaker, it is also important for us as a government, and we are encouraging the adoption of modern technologies like solar dryers for post-harvest management to reduce losses. And this has supported the counties with a total of 72 solar dryers. 64 were supplied by AFA in Nyandarua, Nakuru, Bomet, West Pokot counties, and 8 were also supplied by the pyrethrum processing company in Nyandarua County for demonstration purposes and adoption by farmers. On the third question, Mr. Speaker, that is alluding to the issue of what the government is doing to enhance access by farmers to certified pyrethrum plantlets and extension services, is that the government has been assisting farmers to access pyrethrum planting materials, besides provision of extension services in collaboration with other stakeholders. You will remember, Mr. Speaker, that agriculture is a devolved function, and consequently the extension officers are essentially managed by the counties. And we have got specialized extension officers who work with county extension officers so that they can advise the farmers. The idea is also to provide training facilities for the farmers within the processing company so that they can get the best crop husbandry that is available in the country. And on the planting materials, Mr. Speaker, the ministry, through the Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya, propagates clean planting materials in 2 areas, that is in Muguga and Molo tissue culture laboratories through tissue culture technologies. We also distribute clean materials. The Ministry of Agriculture has also distributed standard pyrethrum planting materials to farmers, as alluded to earlier. The issue of extension services is crucial, not just for the pyrethrum growing, but also for all other crops. And this is one of the issues that we have to work very closely with the county governments to provide extension officers. I think, Mr. Speaker, it is also important for us to say at this point that for a long time, the definition of an extension officer has been vague and undefined. And one of the efforts that we are putting forward is that it is a certification of extension officers. Those people qualified to be extension officers should be people who are certified by the Kenya Agricultural Colleges, so that they have got certificates that qualify them as extension officers. By so doing, we will make sure that there is a standard in the country for extension officers, including the ones for pyrethrum. And in the last question, Mr. Speaker, in the issue of the details, to provide the details on the initiatives by the government to secure guaranteed foreign markets, Mr. Speaker, I found several issues within the ministry and within this sector. And to be honest, Mr. Speaker, this has been a very challenging and sometimes frustrating area to deal with in terms of the foreign markets, even though we are exporting. And I will explain why I have said, I've made that statement. The draft crop pyrethrum regulations 2024 under development will provide a framework for the pyrethrum sector, including the requirements for nurseries, processors, and exporters. 2, Mr. Speaker, the pyrethrum products market is segmented, and let me explain this. The US market requires a generation of critical toxicology and efficacy data required by the US regulatory agency, i.e., the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. The Pyrethrum Processing Company of Kenya is a member of the Pyrethrum Joint Venture, a consortium that includes major stakeholders in the global pyrethrum industry. The government has put in efforts to renew its registrations to EPA. Mr. Speaker, this is important for me. That is a very pregnant statement in terms of our effort to renew, because it elapsed. The renewal, the registration lapsed in the US, and it takes quite some time and quite some money, that we will need in order for us to renew the EPA, registration within the EPA. And only after registration with the EPA, unfortunately for us, it is renewal, not new registration, because the new registration would almost take 2 years. So we are renewing that, and we are putting effort to do so. We have already got somebody, an agent, who is working on doing so. In the European Union, pyrethrum is regulated under the biocidal product regulation, and the registration is coordinated through the European Chemical Agency, what they call ECHA. Kenyan pyrethrum product has been trading in European markets through a network of distributors. Thirdly, the acquisition of international certification standards for quality products, where the pyrethrum processing company is aligning its processing standards to meet good manufacturing practice. That is known as the GMP. Secondly, ISO. Third, the good laboratory practices standards demanded by the global markets. In terms of enhancing value addition and agro-processing, the government, through the same institution, has invested significantly in agro-processing to enhance value addition to pyrethrum products. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that we have got a new plant in Nakuru, which unfortunately has never been commissioned as a result of a lack of proper management and also a lack of enough pyrethrum within the country. So these efforts have led to the registration and commercialization of 7 pyrethrum-based products targeting pests in animal health, public health, agriculture, commercial, and industrial sectors. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the government has introduced agro-processing zones where pyrethrum processors can access affordable industrial spaces to process pyrethrum-based products. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Senator for Kisumu County, do you have any supplementary questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just one question. The Honorable CS for Agriculture, at page 4, you have indicated the allocation to pyrethrum of Kenya shillings 105 million in the financial year 2024-2025. Are there any earnings? Could the Minister clarify whether there are earnings from pyrethrum, if any?
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, just take a couple of questions.
Okay,
then you
okay,
can respond to them at once.
No, Mr. Speaker, I was shocked. I thought we have another Senator Wambua here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CS has admitted in many words that since the disbandment of the Pyrethrum Board of Kenya in the year 2013, the crop has walked a very painful journey towards being an orphaned cash crop. The Speaker, he has also admitted that there is global demand for natural insecticides, and pyrethrum would really fit that bill. So, Speaker, I want to know what percentage of the ministry budget has been allocated to research and development of the pyrethrum subsector in view of the demands of the global market for the crop. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bwana Cabinet Secretary, in the year 2021, the Cabinet then approved the sale of assets of Pyrethrum Board of Kenya to settle debts owed to pyrethrum farmers. Would you tell this House the specific assets which were sold, how much was raised, and how much is being owed to pyrethrum farmers at the moment? Thank you.
Senator Maanzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, bearing in mind that the world now is going organic, and organic insecticides are very popular and on demand in the world now, what programs does the Cabinet Secretary have for the future so that we may capture this market and make sure that pyrethrum is back on track, no more debts, and we are able to make profits worldwide? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Eddie Okech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Waziri has indicated that Homa Bay has got no good climatic conditions for growing pyrethrum. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to know from Waziri, is there a policy position to that effect? Because the national government is charged with making policy on some of these devolved government functions. Is there that policy that has been established to that effect, and has that policy been communicated to counties? Because the purpose for that question is, we have seen Homa Bay County budget lines having pyrethrum as a cornerstone for agriculture in that area. Even in Migori County, there has been indication for growing pyrethrum. Could there be a possibility that there is a conduit of loss of money by our counties if there is no policy position? So is there a policy position that has been communicated to counties with regard to that answer, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS, you have 4 minutes to respond to those supplementary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the earnings, that there are some earnings that we do get from selling the products that the company has been making. But given the budgetary requirements, this is not enough. The company has been earning about 35 million shillings per year. You know, at best, it came to about 60 million shillings per year. And let me also say that there is no money that has been allocated for research. So all this, which is a very critical area for us, and it is not that we have not proposed the research budget. It is only that at the end of the budget process, we find ourselves with not just no money for research, but not enough money even to sustain the organization itself. So, and this is why I was quite candid and honest about it. But I want to, perhaps if I answer in a broader way, I'll cover some of the questions together. Mr. Speaker, the only way, in our view, in terms of policy structure, that we have a future within the pyrethrum sector is to involve the private sector. And the way that we propose is there is a CAB memo at the moment, which I have done, and we are working with Treasury on this one, to see whether we can go into leasing of the pyrethrum processing company of Kenya. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, this idea came from the employees themselves who actually sent a memo to me to ask me whether this is possible, and I agree that this is the way forward. If you look at the privately licensed or the private organizations in the country, they are managing to survive. And therefore, what we should also do, just like we have done with other industries in tea, in cotton, in sugar, is to license private sector so that they can do so, obviously in a transparent and very clear manner. Mr. Speaker, let me just for a little bit also address the issue of the debts and the assets of the organization. Mr. Speaker, farmers themselves are owed only about 10 million shillings, which is essentially the payments from August, November, August, September, and October, which we have not managed to pay, but which we are going to pay. But that's not the main beef. The main challenge, Mr. Speaker, is that the debt portfolio of the organization, and that also comes back to the question that was asked about what we are doing about the debt. The debt portfolio of the organization is some 3.5 billion. And this debt is essentially in suppliers and staff pension. We have tried as much as possible to keep on paying the farmers, but there is a debt portfolio of about 3.5 billion. There was the proposal, as the senator has rightly said, that assets should be sold in order to cover this debt. And it is true that the organization also has an asset portfolio of about 6 billion shillings. So it is possible for us to cover the debt once we sell. But the process of doing so hit a problem at some point. And then the movement from the original company to this organization, the transition period, the valuation of those assets, and so on and so forth, delayed everything about the sale of the assets. So to date, we have not sold any of the assets. And of course, once the cabinet agrees that we license the organization, we will need to go through the entire valuation of the assets again. So because the valuation that we have is a valuation that was done at that time. So, Mr. Speaker, the idea of settling the debts via the sale of some of the assets is still what we intend to do, because there is no other way. And indeed, for us to make it viable for licensing, it is necessary that we settle the debts. Nobody in their right minds, no businessman, is going to come up and say that they want an organization that is in the red to the tune of 3.5 billion. So we need to clean up our balance sheet as we move forward towards the licensing regime. On Homa Bay, the guiding principle on in terms of where to plant what is essentially the weather and climate conditions that I alluded to when I answered the first part of Senator Ojienda's question. This is what guides the policy framework. You cannot decide that you want pyrethrum to grow pyrethrum in an area where the climatic conditions do not do so. There are some spots. There are some spots within Homa Bay, some hilly spots that there is experimenting going on to see whether indeed it is possible to grow pyrethrum there. But largely, this is not going to be a big crop in the Homa Bay area simply because of the climatic conditions. There are other crops like palm oil that are very, very suitable, for Homa Bay. And indeed, we are in engagements with the county government regarding how we can support the production of palm oil, which perhaps will be the premier crop in that county in the future. Mr. Speaker, I think I have addressed all the questions that were asked. I submit.
Thank you so much, Honorable CS. We will terminate our interaction with the CS at that juncture. We will therefore allow the CS to leave at his own pleasure. We will now move to question number 105. Clerk, you may usher in the CS in charge of energy. Honorable Senators, let me take this opportunity to welcome the CS in charge of energy and petroleum to the Senate. Now, Honorable CS, you are before the Senate for purposes of responding to question number 105 and 123. Now, Honorable Senators, these two questions will be allocated 40 minutes, meaning 20 minutes per question. And therefore, we will start with question number 105 and terminate at 10:44. And thereafter, we'll proceed to question number 123 to terminate at 11:05. I will therefore call upon the Senator from Makueni County to proceed and ask question number 105.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of the rural electrification projects initiated by the national government in Makueni County in the years 2022, 2023, 2023, 2024, and 2024-2025 financial years, and provide a status update on each? B, what steps has the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum taken to accelerate the implementation of the rural electrification projects in Makueni County and other counties where electricity access remains below 35%? C, what initiatives in the government implementing to promote the adoption of solar power and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents of Makueni County and other arid and semi-arid areas? Finally, Mr. Speaker, D, and other arid and semi-arid areas. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Speaker. I wish to respond or to answer the question number 105 and to put it in context, Honorable Speaker. The national government under the guidance and leadership of His Excellency President William Ruto, is implementing a robust and elaborate program to extend electricity to every corner of this country, without exception, as I will demonstrate shortly. As a matter of fact, Honorable Speaker, from August 2022 to now, more than 1.2 million additional households countrywide have been connected to electricity. Makueni, of course, being part of that package. Honorable Speaker, during the financial years 2023, 2022-23, 23-24, and 24-25, the government has been able to allocate some Kenya shillings 2.03 billion for Makueni County under the last mile electricity projects, targeting some 18,320 households. A total cost of Kenya shillings 882 million, 581, 888 has been committed through REREC for implementation of some 139 projects. The list of these projects, Honorable Speaker, is provided under Annex 1, showing both the approved budgets and their current implementation status. There was a further 4 projects whose survey and design phases were completed and had been earmarked for implementation, but owing to resource constraints, could not be implemented as scheduled and were therefore deferred to the financial year 25-26. Honorable Speaker, Annexes 2, 3, 4, and 5 provide the details of the projects that have been implemented and those that are planned in Makueni County, including their constituencies and design status. Part B, the government of Kenya, as I've said, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, continues to implement various programs aimed at accelerating electricity access in counties where connectivity remains low, including Makueni County. To address funding constraints and expand rural electrification coverage, the government is pursuing additional financing from development partners to scale up ongoing initiatives under the last mile connectivity project and other complementary programs. In particular, the African Development Bank financed last mile connectivity project phase 3, which is currently under procurement, targets some 35 counties across the country, focusing on areas with low connection levels. Under this program, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County has been allocated approximately Kenya shillings 185 million, which will facilitate the construction of new low voltage distribution networks and transformer installations to connect hundreds of households. The ministry is also working closely with the Kenya Power and REREC to optimize available resources, rationalize existing infrastructure, and implement grid intensification and extension works to ensure equitable access across all counties. Honorable Speaker, the table that follows, of course, shows the summary of the last mile connectivity projects in Makueni County, with the amounts and the respective number of households. Part C, Honorable Speaker. The government of Kenya, through the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, in collaboration with development partners such as the World Bank, is implementing several initiatives to promote the adoption of solar and other off-grid renewable energy solutions among residents in arid and semi-arid regions. One of the flagship programs under this effort, Honorable Speaker, is the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project, famously referred to as COSAP, which seeks to expand access to modern energy services in areas that are not viable for grid extension in the short term at a cost of US dollars 150 million. The project targets 14 undeserved counties, as I've said, And these counties are Garissa, Isiolo, Kilifi, Kwale, Lamu, Mandera, Marsabit, Samburu, Tana River, Turkana, Wajir, West Pokot, Narok, and Taita Taveta. The objective of COSAP is to provide renewable energy access to approximately 37,107 households and 343 public facilities, including schools, health centers, and administrative offices, through solar mini-grids, standalone solar systems, and clean cooking solutions. Although, Honorable Speaker, Makueni County is not among the 14 counties targeted under the initial COSAP phase, the government continues to explore the expansion of similar off-grid renewable energy interventions to other counties with low access levels. In parallel, REREC is also implementing standalone solar systems and mini-grid projects across non-grid areas, complementing national electrification efforts. These initiatives collectively contribute to the realization of universal electricity access by the year 2030, as outlined in the Kenya National Electrification Strategy. Part D, Honorable Speaker, the aim of the ministry is to diversify the country's energy mix to ensure that we meet the rising demand for electricity. The current energy mix, Honorable Speaker, is as contained in the table that follows. I note, Honorable Speaker, that there are future possibilities based on the available information to tap into available renewable energy resources, in particular solar and wind, which I note is available in Makueni and various other areas in the country. And the ministry is in the process of exploiting the same. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, the ministry is transitioning to renewable energy auctions that will encourage the private sector to invest more into solar and wind resources and sell their power at competitive prices. These initiatives will ensure that we harness more power from solar and wind and diversify our energy mix. Honorable Speaker, let me hasten to add that finally the National Assembly, which is part of this parliament, has lifted the moratorium that was imposed by the same House some time back. And therefore, as a ministry and our respective implementing agency, that is Kenya Power, we are now more than free to engage in negotiations with the prospective independent power producers. This will go a long way in addressing the shortfall and indeed to attract more investments locally and foreign. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Manzo, do you have any supplementary questions?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Cabinet Secretary for the effort he has made, and he has clearly indicated that Makueni County doesn't have a budget on part of the solar powering. Recently, Mr. Speaker, the President, while in Qatar, talked about power rationing, and I believe this was with the advice of the Cabinet Secretary. Could he highlight, and when this power rationing happens, when will the people of Makueni be in a blackout so that we can plan ourselves much earlier, Mr. Speaker?
Honorable CS, just wait for a couple of questions, then you can respond to them at once. The Senator for Nairobi City County, Senator Edwin Sifuna.
Honorable Speaker, as you know, I am a member of the Energy Committee of this House. This morning, we woke up to news that Kenya Power owes 30 billion Kenya shillings out of this same program of rural electrification because the government is pushing power to people who cannot actually sustain that power in terms of paying back the power bills. We see it as a photo obsession for the CS of Energy to go into some hut. You can see the economic situation of that house, Honorable Speaker. when the CS is going to switch on that light. Now, my question is this, and Speaker, in fact, the National Assembly, our sister committee in the National Assembly, is now recommending that in order for Kenya Power to pay back that 30 billion shillings, those of us, again, the working middle class in this country, who can afford to pay, the electricity cost to be raised from July of 2026 in order to raise this 30 billion Kenya shillings to repay this debt. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, and Honorable Speaker, we were in Kilifi County, where the Speaker comes from. The other complaint, and I'm sure you have interacted with this issue, Honorable Speaker, is that you find somebody has been connected to power, yes, but the power is so unreliable and so low voltage, it cannot power a portion mill for that hustler down there to be able to actually run the business. So the question to the Cabinet Secretary, as you push this power to these people, what plans have you as a government put in place to ensure that the people you are connecting that power to, after they get the infrastructure, are in an economic situation where they can actually pay their power bills? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Abbas Sheikh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First and foremost, I want to thank the Minister for coming and the good work they're doing. However, I know every part of this country, people are crying for power. Honorable Minister, I think I want to talk about my county. Wajir County has been experiencing power blackout and power inefficiency supply for many, many years. Subsequent governments have always been saying that will be connected to the grid, national grid, that there is 5 megawatts of hybrid solar system. But of course, up to now, we experience same problems. That you have, your ministry has leased, our power has leased, Kenya Power has leased some generators from a private company called Income. But those guys are very inefficient. Income is not actually giving sufficient supply to Wajir. Wajir is experiencing actual blackout every day, one day out, day in. And therefore, I want to ask you a question is that when are you going to connect, when will the Kenya Power, the ministry connect Wajir to the national grid? Because Wajir is growing. And then there's so many off-grid lines that have been taken from the town, the main town, and then being taken to the rural areas. That's okay, that's in order. But of course, the power is not enough. So, because of that many connections, the main town...
Senator Abbas,
yes, sir.
Just pause your question.
Okay. The problem is we're now experiencing, terrible inefficient, the power blackouts. When are we going to have the promised 5 megawatts hybrid system, hybrid power from solars? And what are you going to do, the government doing, the ministry doing to connect Wajir to the national grid? Thank you, Banawziri.
Now, honorable senators, let us avoid speeches. Let's go direct to the question. Senator Catherine Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to ask a question. Honorable CS, welcome to the Senate, and thank you for your response on Makueni. My question is whether the ministry has a program around the national government partnership with county governments to ensure operationalization of the industrial parks. How much has the ministry supported the provision of energy resources around the county industrial parks, and how equitable is that process?
Senator Mbugua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cabinet Secretary, in page 2 of your response, you talked about the last mile connectivity project phase 2. Could you tell this House how much that financing is, and also name the 32 counties which are supposed to benefit? Thank you.
Senator Chiranke?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine is in Nandi, we normally have regular blackouts that is affecting our business as farmers, especially preservation of milk, among other produce and products. What strategy does the ministry have to ensure, as they do last mile electricity to rural homes, have in place to prevent regular blackouts that is affecting the ease of doing business? And in addition, because it's one question, how much has been allocated to Nandi County to ensure in this financial year for rural electrification to many areas in Nandi County? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Consolata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opportunity. Bwana CS, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is based on what mechanisms of sustainability have you put in place to maintain and sustain these gadgets? Because you find that even down at the grassroots where I come from, Bungoma County, most mama mbogas are suffering because of regular power outages. Thank you.
Senator Mandago.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I just want to ask the Cabinet Secretary, what is he doing to ensure that the cost of the projects they are procuring, particularly in Kentraco, are the actual market costs and not inflated costs? And what are you going to do to resolve the matter that has been hanging around between the court and Kenya Power about the meters that is affecting the connections of rural projects? What are you going to do to address the conflict of interest in those who are involved in that matter? Thank you very much.
Now, Honorable CS, you may proceed to respond. You have 5 minutes to do so. 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Yes, as I had said earlier on, Honorable Speaker, we continue to support initiatives to generate more power, especially from the renewable energy sources. That is, of course, including solar and wind power. And it must also be pointed out, Honorable Speaker, that investment in power generation is invariably by the private sector. Yeah, and therefore, the private sector, upon its evaluation and based on clear feasibility study, then makes a decision with the support of the government to implement these projects. And therefore, Makueni County is definitely a candidate for such projects in the fullness of time. Honorable Speaker, the 30 or so billion shillings owed to Kenya Power is not on account of non-payment of bills. This is basically money that is owed to Kenya Power by REREC for the purpose of for maintenance of lines. And it's something which we are dealing with internally as a sector, Honorable Speaker, and the ministry. And Honorable Speaker, it is not true that the households that we connect to electricity, that majority of them fail to pay bills. We don't have that evidence, Honorable Speaker. Many a time when we go out there to commission and or launch these projects, it is really as a way of rallying the public and sensitizing them on what the government is doing for them insofar as extending electricity is concerned. And if there's any default in electricity bill payment, can only be as a matter of, it can only be out of individual cases where somebody, of course, can fail to pay bills for one reason or the other, not because of the fact that we are extending these services to those who are unable to. Honorable Speaker, plans for consistent, reliable, and uninterrupted supply of electricity. It is important to point out that we are not just implementing these last mile connectivity projects or programs in isolation. we are looking at this in a holistic manner. As I mentioned, starts with generation, which thankfully we are now able to progress as a result of the lifting of the moratorium. But after we generate, we are also concurrently dealing with the issue of infrastructure for both transmission and distribution. And we've invested heavily as government and also with support of partners. Yes, through REREC, through Kenya Power, and through KETRACO. And of course, finally, Honorable Speaker, is the last mile. And therefore, you must look at all this in totality. And all these contribute eventually to a supply which is reliable, consistent, uninterrupted, and more importantly, cost-effective. Honorable Speaker, Wajir County, we have been in touch with the leadership of Wajir County and working very closely with them. We know there have been challenges, especially Wajir Town, as a result of a breakdown in one or two generators that supply that town. I have personally, we've been in touch with the Governor Ahmed Abdullahi and my good friend, the Honorable Member for Wajir East, Honorable Daudi. And we have worked very closely, and I'm happy to report that the restoration of power to normalcy in Wajir town and environs is almost complete. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we have got in plans a robust and what I would say transformative project that is going to ensure that we have got a hybrid system in Wajir town, okay? A hybrid system, Honorable Speaker, that will supply some 6 megawatts of electricity to Wajir town and environs, which is comprising of a solar PV and a battery storage system, to the tune of almost 2.8 billion shillings. Almost 2.8 billion shillings. This is a project that we are keen as a ministry to implement successfully, and we are hopeful that come sometime November, December next year, this project will be complete and commissioned. Power in Wajir town and environs, and indeed, yeah, many parts of Wajir County. I must thank the leadership of Wajir County for working very closely with us as an outlook. Honorable Speaker, I'm very happy to report, and this is something which is evident, that for some time now, we have almost reduced to zero cases of national blackouts